Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we're taking you on a journey through one of the most terrifying and enigmatic stories in the world of crime. This is the tale of a man who terrorized the United States, becoming one of the most ruthless serial killers in history. This is the story of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy, a name that evokes both terror and fascination, is a figure who in the 1970s plunged America into a state of fear and chaos. His life and crimes leave many questions unanswered. Why does someone like him become a murderer? How did he manage to evade arrest? What drove his actions? Ted Bundy is a name that evokes both terror and fascination. He was a serial killer who terrorized the United States in the 1970s. His story is one of the most terrifying and incomprehensible in the history of crime. In this article, we will narrate the life and crimes of Ted Bundy, attempting to understand what drove this serial killer. Early life. Theodore Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was a young woman who gave birth to Ted as an illegitimate child. This event had a profound impact on his life. At the age of 3, Bundy was adopted by John and Eleanor Bundy. He was raised in Tacoma, Washington, as their own son. Bundy was considered an intelligent and well-behaved boy, which made him blend in with other children. He had an average childhood, but even then, the first signs of his personality disorder began to emerge. At a young age, he started shoplifting and stealing items, though this was not yet the beginning of his dark career as a serial killer. 2. Early criminal career. Bundy attended the University of Washington, where he met his first serious girlfriend, Stephanie Brooks. His relationship with her had a significant impact on his life. When Brooks left him, Bundy fell into deep depression and felt rejected by women. This marked the beginning of his obsessive hatred towards the female gender. In 1974, Bundy began a series of kidnappings and murders that would shock America. His victims were young women, often college students. Bundy would impersonate various personas, using false stories and pretexts to gain the trust of his victims before kidnapping and killing them. He was ruthless and relentless in his crimes. 3. Kidnappings and murders. Bundy primarily operated in the western United States, traveling from city to city. His first known victim was Linda and Healy, whom he kidnapped and murdered in January 1974. He then went on to commit more murders in Washington, Oregon, and Colorado. One of the most shocking aspects of Bundy's actions was his ability to gain the trust of his victims, appearing as a friendly, likable man. He often pretended to be injured or in need of assistance, making his victims unsuspecting of his malicious intentions. Over the course of several years, Bundy committed numerous murders, but his identity remained unknown. The media dubbed him the Night Stalker due to his ability to operate at night and evade capture. The police were baffled by this series of murders, intensifying the panic and fear in society. 4. Arrest and trial. In 1975, Bundy was arrested for the first time when he was pulled over for driving a suspicious vehicle. During a search of his car, tools used for abductions and murder, as well as photographs of his victims, were discovered. This was a turning point in the investigation. Bundy was brought to trial and convicted on a short sentence for possessing burglary tools. However, even while in custody, he continued his escape plans. He managed to escape from prison shortly afterward and remained on the run for several months. During his escape, he committed more murders, further intensifying the manhunt. Ultimately, Bundy was captured again in August 1975 and imprisoned in Colorado. There, he made another escape attempt by digging a hole in the ceiling of his cell. He successfully escaped from prison in December 1977 and then continued his killing spree in Florida. In January 1978, Bundy kidnapped and murdered 2 college students in Florida, followed by another in the weeks that followed. This sparked outrage and fear in society. Police launched massive manhunts and searches for Bundy. Capture and trial in Florida. Ultimately, Bundy was apprehended by the police in Florida in February 1978. They stumbled upon his vehicle by chance, and upon inspection, found tools of the trade and belongings of his victims. Bundy was arrested and brought to trial. Bundy's trial in Florida was one of the most high-profile events of the time. The killer represented himself in court, further increasing his notoriety. The trial garnered nationwide attention and became the subject of heated debates about the psychology of crime and the nature of evil. Bundy was found guilty of the murders and sentenced to death. His sentence was carried out in February 1989, and Bundy left this world, leaving behind a legacy of terror and fascination. 6. Ted Bundy's psychology. Over the years, psychologists, criminologists, and psychiatrists have tried to understand what drove Ted Bundy. His behavior appears to be a mixture of various factors that influenced his development as a serial killer. Traumatic childhood. Bundy experienced a traumatic start to life as an illegitimate child. Adoption and a lack of knowledge about his origins may have influenced his sense of identity and self-image. Rejection by a woman. Rejection by Stephanie Brooks seems to have triggered Bundy's feelings of anger and vengeance toward the female gender. It became one of the motives behind his crimes. Manipulative abilities. Bundy possessed manipulative skills that allowed him to gain the trust of his victims. He was charming and could seemingly be a kind and helpful man. Psychopathy. Bundy is often described as a psychopath, someone devoid of empathy and guilt. Perhaps this lack of these traits allowed him to commit his heinous crimes without remorse. Prison escapes. His ability to escape from prisons and continue his crimes showcased his intellectual abilities and cunning. Fascination with crime. Bundy had an obsessive fascination with crime and serial killers. He studied cases of other murderers and was interested in their techniques. 7. Legacy and impact. Ted Bundy's legacy is controversial. While he was a criminal who committed gruesome murders, he also became an icon in popular culture. His story has inspired many films, TV series, and books. Many people are still fascinated by his persona and attempt to understand what drove him to commit such heinous acts. Psychologists are also interested in his case, trying to understand the psychopathology of serial killers and how they operate. Analyzing Bundy's life and actions helps shed light on what drives the most dangerous criminals. Conclusion. The story of Ted Bundy is a tale of one of the most terrifying and enigmatic serial killers in the history of crime. His life was shrouded in mystery and cruelty, and his actions left a lasting mark on American society. Efforts to understand his psychology and motivations are ongoing, but one thing is certain.